One moment I was crossing the street near campus, earbuds in, thinking about some boy who didn't even know I existed. The next, tires screeched, someone screamed, and the world tilted sideways in a way that didn't make sense. Then nothing. Then everything. I gasped awake, except it wasn't my gasp. The sound that tore from my throat was deeper, rougher, like someone else's voice wearing my panic. My eyes flew open to carved wooden beams above me, not the white hospital ceiling I should have seen. The air smelled wrong, incense and herbs instead of antiseptic. Feng Wei. Feng Wei, can you hear me? A young man's voice called out urgently. His face swam into focus above me, his features sharp with worry. He wore dusty rose silk robes, and his hair was pulled back in a way I'd only seen in historical dramas. I tried to sit up. Pain exploded through my shoulder, and I collapsed back with a cry. "Don't move, you fool," the young man said, but his voice cracked with emotion. "The arrow, the poison nearly killed you," he continued, his hands gripping my arm. "Arrow? Poison?" My hand moved to my shoulder. At least I thought it was my hand. But it was bigger, rougher, definitely male. I stared at it like it belonged to someone else. Because it did. "Your Highness, please," an elderly man in plain robes urged from somewhere to my left.
"He needs rest.
"The fever has barely broken." "Your Highness?" The young man ignored him, his dark eyes locked on my face with an intensity that made something in this borrowed chest ache. "You've been unconscious for 3 days," he said. "The physician said you wouldn't survive the night, but you did. You're awake." I opened my mouth to say I had no idea what he was talking about, that my name was Ningning and I was a college student, and this had to be some kind of mistake. But what came out was only a hoarse whisper. Where am I?" I asked. "The palace," the young man said, like it should be obvious. "My chambers. I had them move you here, so I could watch over you myself."
"Palace.
"Chambers. Your Highness." "Oh no. Oh no, 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 no." I knew exactly what this was because I'd watched enough dramas to recognize transmigration when it slapped me in the face. Except this wasn't supposed to be real. This was fiction. Fantasy. The kind of thing that happened to protagonists in stories, not to ordinary college girls who couldn't even get a boyfriend. "Do you remember what happened?" the young man pressed. "The hunting grounds? The assassin." I shook my head slowly, which wasn't a lie. I didn't remember any of it because Ningning, hadn't been there. "You saved my life," he said quietly. "You saw the arrow and threw yourself in front of me. You always do this, Feng Wei. You've protected me since we were children." The way he said the name Feng Wei carried years of history I didn't have. This body's history. This life's history. A life I'd apparently just hijacked. "I'm sorry," I whispered, though I wasn't sure what I was apologizing for. "Sorry?" The young man's grip tightened. "You have nothing to be sorry for. Rest now. Recover. That's an order." He stood, and I caught a glimpse of the room beyond him. Silk curtains, carved furniture, the kind of luxury that screamed royalty. "Your Highness," one of the physicians murmured as the prince moved toward the door. About his memories, the poison may have affected his mind. He may not remember things as clearly. It's not uncommon with such toxins. The young man paused. "Will he recover fully?" he asked. "In time, we believe so. But your Highness should be patient with him if he seems different."
Different.
That was one word for it. The prince nodded once, then left, taking his worried energy with him. The physicians fussed over me for a while longer, checking the bandage on my shoulder, making me drink something bitter. Eventually, they left too, leaving me alone with the weight of what had just happened. I was in ancient times, in a man's body, in a bodyguard's body, apparently, one who'd taken an arrow for a prince. I pressed my hand over my face, his face, and tried not to completely lose it. Back at home, had anyone noticed I was gone? My sister, my parents, did they cry at my funeral? Had they already buried me? The truck had hit so hard, so fast. There was no way I could have survived that. The pain in my shoulder was too sharp to be a dream. The exhaustion pulling at these borrowed bones was too heavy. The scratch of silk against skin I didn't recognize was too real. I was dead. I had to be dead. The thought settled over me like a shroud, strangely calming in its finality. I'd died in that accident, and instead of heaven or hell or nothing, I'd ended up here, living in someone else's skin, in someone else's world. This was my afterlife, bizarre as it was. At least I was still conscious, still aware. That was something, wasn't it? Better than simply ceasing to exist. 2 days passed in a blur of sleeping and waking, of physicians checking my wound and servants bringing me food I barely touched. This body, Feng Wei's body, was weak, shaky, like it had burned through everything it had just to survive. On the 3rd day, I finally managed to sit up without wanting to scream. A young servant brought me rice porridge and watched nervously while I ate. "Is young Master Feng Wei feeling better?" she asked hesitantly. Young master.
Right.
I was nobility too, apparently. Or at least important enough to be in the prince's personal chambers. Better. I managed, though the weight of these larger hands still felt foreign, the proportions all wrong. The door opened before I could attempt to actually eat enough. The prince strode in, and this time I got a better look at him. He was maybe 23 or 24, with the kind of face that would have made him an idol back home. Sharp cheekbones, expressive eyes, an air of authority softened only slightly by the relief that flooded his features when he saw me sitting up. "You look better," he said, dismissing the servant with a wave. She scurried out, closing the door behind her. "Bo Cheng," I said, recalling the name a servant had mentioned earlier when discussing the prince. He froze. Then something strange crossed his face, surprise mixed with what looked almost like joy. "Bo Cheng," he repeated softly. "You just called me by my name. No title." I swallowed hard, realizing my mistake. "I apologize, No," Bo Cheng interrupted, moving closer. "Don't apologize. I've missed hearing you say my name like that." He sat on the edge of my bed without asking, the casual intimacy of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. But this wasn't his childhood friend sitting here. This was an imposter who didn't know the first thing about their shared history. "The physician said the poison might have affected you," Bo Cheng continued, his hands clenching on his knees. "That you might not remember everything clearly. But maybe." He paused, seeming to struggle with the words. "Maybe that's not entirely bad." "What do you mean?" I asked carefully. "You've been so distant these past few years," he said quietly. "Always, Your Highness this, and Your Highness that. Always keeping your distance, remembering your place. I understood why you did it. We're not children anymore, and there are expectations, protocols. But I miss my friend. I miss just talking to you like we used to." The loneliness in his voice made my chest ache. This prince, surrounded by servants and nobles and guards, was utterly alone. And the one person who could have been his true friend had apparently pulled away, leaving him isolated. "I'm sorry," I whispered. I meant it in ways Bo Cheng couldn't understand. Sorry for the original Feng Wei who'd felt he had no choice but to distance himself. Sorry for Bo Cheng who'd lost his only friend. Sorry for myself for being trapped in this impossible situation. "Don't be," Bo Cheng said, and when he looked at me, there was hope in his eyes. "You called me Bo Cheng. That's more than you've done in years. Maybe we can find our way back to how things used to be." How things used to be. Between two childhood friends who'd grown up together, who'd trained together, who'd shared everything until duty and station forced them apart. Except I wasn't that friend. I was just a girl from another world wearing his face. Over the following days, Bo Cheng visited every evening without fail. He'd bring wine and sit with me for hours, talking about everything and nothing. He told me stories about their childhood, sneaking out of lessons, stealing pastries from the kitchens, practicing sword work until their arms ached. I listened and memorized every detail, trying to build a picture of the life I was supposed to have lived. But mostly, I just watched him. Watched the way his face lit up when he laughed. Watched the way he absently pushed hair behind his ear when he was thinking. Watched the way he looked at me, at the body I inhabited, with such open affection. Like a brother. Like a best friend. Like someone precious. "I'm getting married," Bo Cheng said one evening, about a week after I'd woken up. His words hit me hard, though I had no right to feel that way. "The king has been pushing for it," he continued, staring into his wine cup. "Lady Qiao Lian from the Liu family. It's an excellent political match, or so they tell me." "Congratulations," I managed, the word tasting bitter. Bo Cheng laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I've met her twice. She's beautiful, accomplished, everything a crown princess should be. She also treats me like I'm made of porcelain, something to be admired from a distance, but never actually touched." "Most people treat you that way," I pointed out quietly. "Not you," he said, looking at me with those intense dark eyes. "Not anymore. You actually talk to me like I'm human. Like I'm just Bo Cheng, not the crown prince." I've missed that more than I can say. The warmth in his voice, the gratitude, it was all friendship. All platonic affection for someone he thought was his childhood companion. But sitting there in the candlelight, with him so close I could feel the warmth radiating from him, something shifted in my chest. Something dangerous. I pushed it down, buried it deep. This was ridiculous. I was a woman in a man's body, developing feelings for a prince who thought I was his male best friend. A prince who was about to marry someone else. A prince I had no business even thinking about that way. "When is the wedding?" I asked, forcing my voice to stay neutral. 3 months from now at the spring festival," Bo Cheng replied. "The formal engagement will be announced soon. She'll move into the palace to prepare." 3 months. I had 3 months before he belonged to someone else completely. Not that he belonged to me now. Not that he ever could. The next morning, the head physician declared me well enough to attempt light movement. Bo Cheng insisted on accompanying me to a private training courtyard, his excitement uncontrollable. "Just some basic forms to see how much the injury affected you," he said cheerfully, handing me a practice sword. "Nothing too strenuous." I stared at the weapon in my hands like it might bite me. I'd never held a sword in my life. The closest I'd come was watching martial arts movies while eating instant noodles. "Feng Wei." Bo Cheng's smile faded. "What's wrong?" Everything was wrong, I thought to myself. I was supposed to be the best swordsman in the kingdom, and I didn't know the first thing about holding this weapon. I wrapped my fingers around the hilt, trying to remember anything from those movies. I lifted it. It was heavier than I expected. My grip faltered. "Your grip is completely wrong," Bo Cheng said, his eyes widening in disbelief. "Is it?" I adjusted my hands, which somehow made it worse. "Feng Wei, you're holding it like you've never seen a sword before," he said, moving closer with concern etched on his face. "Here, like this." He positioned himself behind me, reaching around to adjust my grip. His chest pressed against my back, his arms surrounding me, his hands covering mine. Warm and strong, and so close I could barely breathe. "Relax your shoulders," he murmured near my ear, completely oblivious to the way my borrowed heart was racing. "You're too tense." Of course I was tense. A handsome prince was pressed against me, his breath warm on my neck, and every nerve in this body was screaming with awareness. But to him, this was nothing. Just helping his childhood friend, the way he'd probably done 1,000 times when the original Feng Wei was actually here. "Now, the basic stance," Bo Cheng continued, guiding my arms through a simple movement. "This is the first form I taught you when we were 8 years old. You used to do it in your sleep." I tried to follow along, but it was like my body had forgotten everything. Which, technically, it had, because I'd never known it in the first place. After several minutes of watching me fumble through movements that should have been muscle memory, Bo Cheng stepped back. His expression had shifted from concerned to deeply troubled. "Call the physicians," he ordered a nearby servant. "No, wait," I started. "Feng Wei, you can't even hold a sword properly," Bo Cheng said, his voice tight with worry. "You're the best swordsman in the kingdom, and you're moving like you've never had a lesson in your life." The poison did more damage than we thought. The physicians came rushing over, examining me while asking questions I couldn't properly answer. Finally, the head physician stroked his beard thoughtfully. "The near-death experience may have affected more than his memories, Your Highness," he said slowly. "Sometimes, when someone passes that close to the veil between life and death, they lose skills their body once knew. It's as if the hands forget what the mind cannot recall." Bo Cheng looked stricken. "Will he recover?" he asked quietly. "With time and practice, perhaps. The body can relearn what it once knew. But it will not be quick, Your Highness." I felt like the worst kind of imposter, standing there while they discussed the original Feng Wei's lost abilities I had never possessed and never would. "Then he'll relearn," Bo Cheng said firmly, his jaw set with determination. "I'll train him myself if I have to. Every day, until it comes back to him." "Your Highness, you have duties," one of the ministers who'd arrived protested. "My duty is to the people who serve me," Bo Cheng cut him off, his voice carrying an authority I hadn't heard from him before. "Feng Wei took an arrow meant for me. The least I can do is help him recover what he lost because of me." The way he said it, the guilt, the loyalty, the determination, made something warm and painful twist in my chest. He cared so much about his friend. Had no idea that friend was gone, replaced by someone who couldn't even begin to fill his shoes. That afternoon, Bo Cheng cleared his schedule. We returned to the training yard, just the two of us, and he demonstrated the most basic stance with infinite patience. "Don't think about what you should remember," he said gently. "Just follow my movements."
So I did.
For hours, we practiced the simplest forms, Bo Cheng correcting my posture, adjusting my grip, demonstrating each movement over and over without a trace of frustration. He was kind in a way that made my throat tight, patient in a way that made me want to cry. This was what friendship looked like to him. This was how he treated someone he cared about. And I was falling for him. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Somewhere between his evening visits and his patient instruction, between his easy laughter and his vulnerable confessions about loneliness, I'd started developing feelings I had absolutely no right to have. "Better," Bo Cheng said as the sun started to set, his face breaking into a genuine smile. "You're learning faster than I expected. Maybe the muscle memory is still there somewhere, just buried." I didn't have the heart to tell him there was no muscle memory to find. As we walked back toward my chambers, Bo Cheng was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that made my heart clench. "You know, in a strange way, I'm grateful," he said softly. I looked at him in surprise. "Grateful?" "For this," he gestured vaguely between us. "I know it must be frightening for you, losing your memories and skills. But you're different now. More open. You actually talk to me like I'm a person instead of a title. You tease me. You laugh at my jokes." He smiled, but there was sadness in it. "I've been so lonely, Feng Wei. Surrounded by people but utterly alone. And then I almost lost you, and when you came back, it was like getting my childhood friend back. The one I remembered before everything got complicated." The guilt crashed over me in waves. He thought he had his friend back, but that friend was gone. I was just a stranger wearing a stolen face, basking in affection that belonged to someone else. "Bo Cheng," I said quietly, "what if I never fully recover? What if I'm never the Feng Wei you remember?" He stopped walking and turned to face me, the evening light catching in his sparkling eyes. "Then I'll get to know this Feng Wei instead," he said simply. "And maybe this version of you is what I've needed all along. Someone who doesn't remember all the rules about distance and propriety. Someone who just talks to me like a friend." Before I could respond, a servant came hurrying up, bowing deeply. Your Highness, the king requests your presence in the throne hall, the servant announced breathlessly. It's urgent. Bo Cheng's expression shifted instantly, the openness shuddering behind the mask of a crown prince. Tell His Majesty I'll be there shortly, he said formally. He glanced at me one more time, and for a moment, the mask slipped.
Rest.
We'll continue training tomorrow. I watched him stride away, his posture straight and formal, and felt the distance open between us again. That was his real world, the court, the politics, the responsibilities. I was just a brief respite, a moment of escape. And soon enough, he'd have a wife. A proper crown princess who belonged in his world. Someone who wasn't a confused girl from the future trapped in the wrong body. The weeks that followed fell into a pattern. Mornings were spent in the training yard with Bo Cheng, where I slowly, painfully learned the basics of swordwork. My progress was clumsy, halting, nothing like what the original Feng Wei would have achieved. But Bo Cheng never showed impatience. He corrected my stance with gentle hands, demonstrated forms over and over, encouraged every small improvement. You're doing well, he'd say, even when we both knew I wasn't. Afternoons, I'd help him with administrative work. Modern knowledge turned out to be surprisingly useful, concepts about trade, economics, strategy that didn't exist here yet. Bo Cheng would listen to my suggestions with growing excitement, implementing ideas that apparently seemed revolutionary in this time period. Where do these ideas come from? He asked one day, looking at me with curious wonder. You've always been clever, but this is different. Sharper somehow. Maybe almost dying changes how you think, I said quickly, deflecting. Evenings were the worst and the best. Bo Cheng would come to my chambers with wine, settling in like he belonged there, and we'd talk for hours. About his frustrations with his father, about court politics, about his upcoming marriage to Lady Qiao Lian. I met with her again today, he said one evening, about 6 weeks after I'd woken up. She's perfect. Everything I should want. The way he said should made my heart hurt. She'll make an excellent crown princess, he continued, staring into his wine cup. Beautiful, educated, graceful. The kingdom will approve. But, I prompted quietly. But she looks at me the way everyone else does, Bo Cheng said with a sigh. Like I'm something precious to be protected. Like I'm more crown than person. He looked up at me then, his eyes dark with something I couldn't name. You're the only one who treats me like I'm just me. Do you know how rare that is? I did know, because I was falling deeper every day, and it was getting harder to hide. Bo Cheng, I started, but he held up a hand. I know, he said quietly. I know I'm being selfish. I know I should be focused on my duties, on my marriage, on being the crown prince everyone needs me to be. But these evenings with you, they're the only time I feel like I can breathe. He reached out and squeezed my shoulder, a gesture of friendship that sent warmth flooding through me. Thank you, he said simply, for coming back to me, for being my friend when I need one most.
Friend.
The word was a knife between my ribs. After he left that night, I lay in the darkness and tried to get my emotions under control. This was impossible. Completely impossible. I was a woman in a man's body, developing feelings for a straight prince who thought I was his male childhood friend. A prince who was getting married in less than 2 months. I needed to stop this. Needed to pull back, create distance, protect both of us from the disaster this was becoming. But the next evening, when Bo Cheng showed up at my door with that hopeful smile, asking if I wanted to hear about the ridiculous thing his father's advisor had suggested in court, I let him in anyway. Because I was weak. Because I was lonely. Because in my real life, I'd always been invisible, and here, in this borrowed body, in this borrowed life, someone finally saw me. Even if what he saw was someone else entirely. 2 months after I'd woken up, something changed. I was alone in my chambers one night, practicing the sword forms Bo Cheng had taught me when I heard it. A voice in my head. Not my thoughts, someone else's thoughts. distinct and separate from my own. Who are you? I dropped the practice sword with a clatter, spinning around. The room was empty.
Who are you?
The voice came again, stronger this time. Why are you in my body? My blood turned to ice. The original Feng Wei. He was still here. Still alive. Still aware. You're alive, I thought back, not even sure if he could hear me. Barely, came the reply, tinged with exhaustion. The poison, it trapped me, pushed me down into darkness. But I'm getting stronger. And I want my body back.
Panic seized me.
If he took control, what would happen to me? Would I just cease to exist? Disappear into nothing? I don't know how this happened, I thought desperately. I was in an accident and then I just woke up here. I don't care how it happened. Feng Wei's voice cut through my panic. This is my life. My body. You're an intruder. He wasn't wrong. But the thought of losing this, of losing Bo Cheng, of this existence just ending. Please, I thought. Just let me. The world tilted suddenly. I wasn't in control anymore. My, Feng Wei's, body moved without my command, arms lifting the practice sword with fluid grace I'd never possessed. The movements were perfect, instinctive, exactly what they should have been. Then, just as suddenly, control snapped back to me and I stumbled, nearly falling. I can take over now, Feng Wei's voice said, satisfied and terrifying. Not for long yet, but soon. Soon I'll be strong enough to reclaim what's mine. What about me? I asked, fear making my thoughts sharp. What about you? His voice was cold. You're the ghost here, not me. This is my body. My prince. My life. Your prince? I echoed, something clicking into place. Silence. Then quieter. It doesn't matter. But it did matter. Because I suddenly understood. The original Feng Wei had feelings for Bo Cheng too. That's why he'd pulled away, why he'd become so formal and distant. He'd been protecting them both from something impossible. You love him, I said, not a question. I told you, it doesn't matter, Feng Wei said sharply. What I feel, what you feel, none of it matters. He's the Crown Prince. I'm his bodyguard. That's all we can ever be. But
no. His voice was firm.
I've spent years learning to bury these feelings. Years of watching him, protecting him, loving him from a distance while knowing nothing could ever come of it. And then you came along and started acting like none of that matters. Like you can just be his friend, without consequences. I am his friend, I protested. You're living my life, Feng Wei shot back. Stealing moments with him that should have been mine. Do you have any idea what it's been like? Trapped in darkness, aware but powerless, watching you take everything I never let myself have. The pain in his voice made my chest ache. He was right. I'd been living his life, enjoying his friendship with Bo Cheng, even developing my own feelings for the prince. All while he was trapped, unable to do anything but watch. I'm sorry, I thought quietly. I never meant to hurt you. But you did, Feng Wei said, and then his presence faded, leaving me alone in my head again. I sank down onto my bed, hands shaking. The original Feng Wei was still here, growing stronger every day. Soon he'd take back full control, and I would what? Disappear?
Die?
Return to whatever came after death? I'd thought I was already dead. Thought the truck had killed me, and this was some kind of second chance. But now, facing the reality of actually ceasing to exist, terror clawed at my throat. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to lose this life. These moments with Bo Cheng, the feeling of being seen for the first time in my existence. But I also couldn't keep stealing someone else's life. Over the next few days, Feng Wei's presence became more pronounced. Sometimes I'd lose time, minutes or hours where I'd black out and wake up somewhere else with no memory of how I got there. During those times, Feng Wei was in control, living his life again. Bo Cheng started noticing the inconsistencies. You were amazing at training this morning, he said one evening, confusion in his voice. Your sword work was nearly perfect. But this afternoon, You could barely hold your stance. What's happening? Don't tell him. Feng Wei's voice warned in my head. He can't know. I don't know, I said honestly. Sometimes it just comes back to me, and then it's gone again. Bo Cheng's brow furrowed with worry. We should call the physicians. No, I said quickly. I'm fine. It's just the recovery isn't linear, I guess. He didn't look convinced, but he let it drop. That night, after Bo Cheng left, Feng Wei's voice returned. He's getting married in 6 weeks, he said quietly. Lady Qiao Lian. The engagement will be announced at the spring festival.
I know, I thought back.
And you're falling for him, Feng Wei continued.
I can feel it.
Every time he smiles at you, every time he touches your shoulder, every evening you spend together, you're falling deeper. I can't help it, I admit it. I know it's wrong. I know it's impossible. But I can't help how I feel. At least you get to feel it openly, Feng Wei said bitterly. At least you don't have to hide it behind years of protocol and duty. Do you know what it was like? Being in love with him since we were 16, knowing I could never say anything, never act on it? Watching him from a distance, protecting him, dying inside every time he smiled at me like a brother? I'm sorry, I said again, meaning it with everything I had. Sorry doesn't change anything, Feng Wei replied. I'm getting stronger every day. Soon I'll be able to maintain control permanently. And when that happens, I'll disappear, I finished quietly.
Yes.
The word hung between us like a death sentence.
How long?
I whispered. A few weeks, Feng Wei said. Maybe less. The engagement announcement is in 6 weeks. The wedding in 3 months. I'll be back in full control long before then. 3 months. That's all the time I had left. The knowledge sat heavy in my chest. I was going to disappear.
Cease to exist.
And there was nothing I could do about it. What will you do? I asked Feng Wei. When you take back control, will you go back to being distant with him? A long pause. Then, I'll do what I've always done. Remember my place. Serve him faithfully. Watch him marry Lady Qiao Lian and pretend my heart isn't breaking.
That's not fair to you, I said.
Life isn't fair, Feng Wei replied, echoing words I'd thought myself. I've known that since I was 16 years old and realized I was in love with someone I could never have. Because he's a man? I asked carefully. Because he's the Crown Prince, Feng Wei corrected. Because I'm his bodyguard. Because even if he somehow felt the same way, which he doesn't, it would destroy both our lives. Men loving men is scandalous enough. But a prince and his servant? That's impossible in ways I can't even count. He cares about you, I offered. As a friend, Feng Wei said firmly. As a brother. Nothing more. I've watched him my entire life. I know what his affection looks like, and it's entirely platonic. What you're feeling, what you're hoping for, it's not reciprocated. It never will be. His words stung, because I knew they were true. Bo Cheng touched me with casual familiarity, spoke to me with open affection, spent hours with me every evening, but it was all friendship. The warmth of someone grateful to have their childhood companion back. He'd never once looked at me, at the body I inhabited, with anything resembling romantic interest. I know, I admitted quietly. I know he doesn't feel that way. But I can't help what I feel. Then you understand, Feng Wei said, his voice softer. You understand what it's like to love someone you can never have. Yes, I whispered. I understand. We were both trapped in the same impossible situation, both loving the same person hopelessly. The only difference was that I had weeks left, while Feng Wei faced a lifetime of it. The next day, Bo Cheng took me to watch him practice archery, something he said they used to do together as children. He was trying to help me remember, trying to spark some recognition. But all I could think was that the original Feng Wei had stood in this exact spot countless times, watching the prince he loved from a careful distance, never daring to hope for more. You're quiet today, Bo Cheng observed, lowering his bow. Is everything all right? Don't tell him, Feng Wei warned immediately. Just thinking, I said. About what? Bo Cheng asked, moving closer with concern on his face. About how I'm going to disappear. About how you're going to marry someone you don't love. About how unfair all of this is. About how different things are now, I said instead. How strange it is to not remember our childhood together. Bo Cheng's expression softened. I'll tell you all the stories, he said earnestly. Every memory, every moment. We can rebuild what was lost. But it wasn't lost. It was trapped inside this body with me, belonging to someone who'd loved him for years in silence. Bo Cheng, I started, then stopped. What could I even say? What is it? He asked gently. Don't, Feng Wei said sharply in my head. Nothing, I said quietly. Just thank you for being so patient with me. You're my friend, Bo Cheng said simply, like that explained everything. My only real friend. I'd do anything for you. Friend. There was that word again, cutting deep. That evening, Lady Qiao Lian arrived at the palace for the first time since I'd woken up. I saw her during a garden reception, standing beside Bo Cheng with graceful dignity. She was exactly as I'd imagined. Beautiful, poised, perfect in every way. She looked at Bo Cheng with appropriate respect and gentle interest. He looked at her with polite attention and nothing more. They looked like strangers forced to stand together for a portrait. That could have been us, Feng Wei's voice said quietly. If things were different, if I were a woman, if I weren't his servant, that could have been me standing beside him. But it's not, I thought back. And it's not going to be me either. No, Feng Wei agreed. It won't be either of us. After the reception, Bo Cheng found me in the guard quarters, his jaw tight with tension. I need to talk to you, he said tersely. My chambers. Now. I followed him through the palace corridors, dread building with each step. In his private rooms, he poured 2 cups of wine with hands that shook slightly. I can't do this, he said without preamble, not even looking at me. Can't do what? I asked carefully. Marry her. He downed his wine in one gulp and immediately poured more. I spent 2 hours making polite conversation today, and all I could think was how empty it felt. She's lovely and accomplished and everything I should want, but she's not. He trailed off, staring into his cup. She's not what? I prompted, even though I shouldn't, even though Feng Wei was screaming warnings in my head. She's not someone I can actually talk to, Bo Cheng said heavily. She treats me like every other noble does, with careful respect and proper distance. And I'm so tired of it, Feng Wei. I'm so tired of being alone, even when I'm surrounded by people. He looked at me then, his eyes full of frustration and pain. These past 2 months with you have been the happiest I've been in years, he continued. Having someone to laugh with, to complain to just exist with without all the formality. And now I'm supposed to marry someone who will never give me that. I'm supposed to spend my life with a stranger who sees me as a title first and a person second. My chest ached hearing the misery in his voice. Maybe it will get better, I offered weakly. Once you're married, once she gets to know you. It won't, Bo Cheng interrupted flatly. I can see it in her eyes. She's marrying the Crown Prince, not Bo Cheng. She'll be a dutiful wife, give me heirs, fulfill all her obligations. But she'll never be my friend. She'll never be someone I can just be myself with. He moved closer, and I could see the desperation in his expression. Promise me something, he said urgently. What? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Promise me that even after I'm married, things won't change between us. Promise me you'll still come sit with me in the evenings, still argue with me about strategy, still treat me like I'm just Bo Cheng and not the Crown Prince. His hand gripped my arm. Promise me I won't lose this. Won't lose you again. Don't promise him anything, Feng Wei warned. In a few weeks, I'll be back in control, and I won't be able to give him what he's asking for. But looking at Bo Cheng's face, at the loneliness etched into every feature, I couldn't help myself. "I promise," I whispered, knowing it was a lie. Knowing that in a few weeks I'd be gone, and the original Feng Wei would return to his careful distance. Bo Cheng's shoulders sagged with relief. He pulled me into an embrace, the kind of hug friends shared, brotherly and warm and completely platonic. But with my face pressed against his shoulder, breathing in the scent of him, feeling the solid warmth of his body against mine, my heart was breaking. Because I loved him. Completely, impossibly, hopelessly. And he had no idea. The weeks crawled by. Lady Qiao Lian visited the palace more frequently, preparing for the engagement announcement. I'd see them together sometimes, her graceful and composed, him polite but distant. The disconnect between them was painful to watch. Feng Wei's takeovers became more frequent, more unpredictable. Sometimes I'd lose hours, coming back to find myself in different locations with no memory of how I got there. Bo Cheng grew increasingly concerned about these lapses, these moments where I'd suddenly display perfect swordwork only to lose it again minutes later. "Something's wrong," he said one evening, his brow furrowed with worry. "This isn't normal recovery. You're getting better and worse at the same time." "Don't tell him," Feng Wei said, as he always did. "I'm fine," I lied. "Just tired." But I wasn't fine. I could feel Feng Wei growing stronger every day, his presence more solid, more insistent. Soon he'd be strong enough to take back control permanently. Soon I'd cease to exist. The thought terrified me more than I wanted to admit. I'd accepted that I was dead, that I died in that accident, and somehow ended up here. But facing the reality of actually disappearing, of this consciousness, these thoughts, these feelings just ending was different. I wasn't ready. "Neither was I when you took over," Feng Wei said quietly one night when I thought that too loudly. "But we don't always get to be ready." "I'm scared," I admitted. "So am I," he replied, surprising me. "I'm scared to take back my body and have to face him again. Have to serve him faithfully while he marries someone else. Have to watch him be unhappy and know there's nothing I can do about it." "We're both trapped," I said softly. "Yes," Feng Wei agreed.
We are.
There was something almost companionable about it. Two souls sharing one body, both loving the same person hopelessly, both facing impossible futures. "What was he like?" I asked one night. "When you were children?" Feng Wei was quiet for a moment. Then, slowly, he shared a memory, not in words but in images and feelings. Bo Cheng at 8 years old, laughing as he and Feng Wei climbed trees they weren't supposed to climb. Bo Cheng at 12, defending Feng Wei from older boys who'd picked on him. Bo Cheng at 15, sitting beside Feng Wei under the stars, talking about his fears of becoming king someday. "He was my best friend," Feng Wei said quietly. "And then I turned 16 and realized I was in love with him, and everything changed. I couldn't be close to him anymore without it hurting. Couldn't let him touch me casually, without wanting more. So I pulled away. Put up walls. Remember my place." "He missed you," I said. "He's told me how much he missed having you as a friend." "I know," Feng Wei replied, and there was so much pain in those two words. "I missed him too. Every day, I missed him." "I'm sorry I took that from you," I said. "These past 2 months with him, they should have been yours." "Maybe," Feng Wei said thoughtfully. "Or maybe it's better this way. You gave him what I never could. The friendship without the distance, the ease without the weight of unspoken feelings. Maybe that's what he needed. But what about what you need?" I asked. Feng Wei laughed, but it was a hollow sound. "What I need doesn't matter. It never has." A few weeks later, the formal engagement announcement was made at a grand celebration. The entire court gathered as the king proclaimed Bo Cheng's betrothal to Lady Qiao Lian. I watched from my position among the guards, Feng Wei's presence heavy in my mind, both of us aching. Bo Cheng's eyes found mine across the pavilion. Even from a distance, I could see the misery in them, the silent plea. but there was nothing I could do. This is torture, Feng Wei said quietly, watching him be announced to another. Knowing in 3 months he'll be married. Knowing I'll spend the rest of my life serving them both, pretending I don't. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. That night, Bo Cheng appeared at my chambers despite the impropriety of visiting after such a formal occasion. He looked wrecked, hair disheveled, formal robes loosened, his eyes sad like he was on the verge of tears. "It's done," he said without greeting, his voice hoarse. "The engagement is official. In 3 months, I'll be married." He crossed the room and collapsed onto my bed, burying his face in his hands. I stood there while they announced it, while everyone celebrated, and all I could think was that I'm going to spend the rest of my life pretending to be happy, he said, his voice muffled. "Pretending this is what I want. Pretending I'm not dying inside." I sat beside him, careful to maintain some distance even though I wanted to comfort him. "You'll learn to be content," I offered quietly. "Many marriages start as arrangements and grow into something more." "Will they?" Bo Cheng asked, his eyes haunted. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like I'm going to be married to a stranger while the only person I actually want to spend time with is." He stopped abruptly, seeming to catch himself. "Is what?" I prompted, my heart hammering. "Is someone I can't have," he finished, but there was something strange in his voice. Something that made warning bells go off in my head. "He doesn't mean it that way," Feng Wei said quickly. "He's talking about friendship, about wanting a friend instead of a political wife." But the way Bo Cheng was looking at me in that moment, there was something in his expression I couldn't quite read. "Bo Cheng," I started. "I should go," he interrupted, standing abruptly. "I shouldn't have come here like this. It's not fair to you." "It's fine," I said. "You can always."
No.
His voice was firm. "It's not fine. Nothing about this is fine." He left without another word, leaving me sitting there in confusion. "What was that?" I asked Feng Wei. "Nothing," he said, but his voice was uncertain. "He's just upset about the engagement. Don't read more into it than there is." But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. The next few days were strange. Bo Cheng still came by in the evenings, but there was a tension that hadn't been there before. He'd sit closer than usual, his touches lingering a fraction too long, his eyes searching my face like he was looking for something. And then, one night, everything changed. It was late. We'd been drinking wine, talking about nothing important, the conversation growing slower and softer as the night wore on. Bo Cheng was sitting beside me on my bed. Not unusual, we'd sat like this dozens of times. But this time, when our eyes met, something crackled in the air between us. "Feng Wei," he said quietly, his voice rough. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course," I replied. "Do you ever?" He paused, seeming to struggle with the words. "Do you ever wish things were different? That we could just be ourselves without all the expectations and rules?" "Be careful," Feng Wei warned. "Sometimes," I admitted carefully. "Why?" Bo Cheng was quiet for a long moment, his gaze fixed on my face with an intensity that made it hard to breathe. "Because lately I've been thinking," he trailed off, shaking his head. "Never mind. It's stupid." "Tell me," I pressed, even though I probably shouldn't. He looked at me then, and what I saw in his eyes made my heart stop. "I've been thinking that maybe the reason I can't connect with Lady Qiao Lian is because..." He swallowed hard. "Because what I want, what I need, it's not something she can give me. It's not something any wife could give me." The words hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. "No," Feng Wei said sharply. "No, he doesn't mean he can't mean..." "Bo Cheng," I said carefully, my voice shaking. "What are you saying?" He reached out slowly, his hand cupping my jaw with devastating gentleness. "I'm saying that maybe the reason I've been so happy these past months is because I'm falling for..." He stopped, his eyes widening in realization. "Gods. I'm falling for you." The confession shattered everything. He's confused, Feng Wei said desperately.
He doesn't know what he's saying.
He's upset about the marriage, and he's confusing friendship with. But I could see it in Bo Cheng's eyes. The shock, the realization, the dawning understanding of something he hadn't let himself acknowledge until this moment. I'm falling for you, he repeated, sounding dazed. I'm falling for my best friend. I'm falling for a man. I'm falling for someone I can never. His voice cracked. Bo Cheng, I whispered, my own emotions a tangled mess. You don't, this isn't. Don't tell me what I feel, he said, his hand still gentle on my face. I know this is impossible. I know it's wrong on more levels than I can count. But I can't help it. These past 2 months, being with you, talking to you, having you back in my life, somewhere along the way, friendship became something more. This can't be happening, Feng Wei said, his voice anguished. All those years I loved him in silence, and now when I'm not even in control, his voice trailed off, the thought too devastating to complete. My heart was breaking for both of them. For Feng Wei, who'd loved Bo Cheng for years and never been seen that way. For Bo Cheng, who'd finally recognized his feelings, but for the wrong version of his friend. For myself, because I loved him too, and this was still impossible in every way that mattered. You're getting married in 3 months, I said quietly, even as tears burned behind my eyes. I know, Bo Cheng replied, his thumb brushing my cheek. I'm your bodyguard, your servant. I know. We're both men. I know, he said again, his voice rough. I know all of it. But knowing something is impossible doesn't make the feelings go away. He leaned closer, his forehead resting against mine. Tell me you don't feel it too, he whispered. Tell me I'm imagining this connection between us, and I'll walk away. I'll marry Lady Qiao Lian and never mention this again. But if there's any chance you feel even a fraction of what I... Don't, Feng Wei begged. Please don't. But I couldn't lie. Not about this. Not when Bo Cheng was looking at me with such vulnerable hope. I feel it. I admit it. The words tearing out of me. I feel it too. Bo Cheng's breath caught. His hand slid into my hair, and for a moment, I thought he was going to kiss me. No, Feng Wei said desperately. No, you can't. And then, suddenly, I wasn't in control anymore. Feng Wei seized the body, pushing me down into darkness. Through his eyes, I felt him pull away from Bo Cheng, felt him stand and put distance between them. Your Highness, Feng Wei said, his voice formal and cold. You're confused. Upset about your engagement. You don't know what you're saying. Bo Cheng blinked, clearly taken aback by the sudden change. Feng Wei, I'm not confused. You should go, Feng Wei interrupted. It's late, and you have duties in the morning. This conversation was inappropriate. Inappropriate. Bo Cheng's voice rose with frustration. You just said. I said what you wanted to hear. Feng Wei cut him off, each word clearly painful to say. But it doesn't change reality. You're the Crown Prince. I'm your bodyguard. Nothing can happen between us, so there's no point in pretending otherwise. Is that really what you think? Bo Cheng asked quietly, hurt bleeding into his voice. What I think doesn't matter, Feng Wei said, his control over the body absolute. You're getting married. I serve you. That's all there is. Let me back, I screamed in the darkness. Let me explain. But Feng Wei held firm. Leave, Your Highness, he said, and there was finality in his tone. And let's never speak of this again. Bo Cheng stared at him, at us, for a long moment. Then, without another word, he turned and left, the door closing behind him with terrible quietness. The moment he was gone, Feng Wei released control, and I surged back, gasping. Why did you do that? I demanded. Because someone had to, Feng Wei replied, his voice shaking. Because if I hadn't stopped it, you would have kissed him. And then what? He's getting married. This is impossible. All you would have done is make it worse for everyone. He has feelings for me, for us, for you, I said. He has feelings for you, Feng Wei corrected bitterly. Not me. The version of me that you created. The one who's open and relaxed and doesn't remember to keep proper distance. If I take back full control, he won't feel that way anymore. He'll just have his formal, distant bodyguard back, and he'll realize those feelings were just confusion. You don't know that, I argued. Yes, I do, Feng Wei said quietly. Because I've known him his entire life, and he's never once looked at the real me with anything resembling romantic interest. What he feels is new. It's because of you, because of how you've changed things. And when you're gone, when I'm gone, you could have him, I said desperately. You heard what he said. He's falling for this body, for Feng Wei. You could. I could what? Feng Wei's voice was sharp.
Pretend to be you?
Try to maintain the personality and openness that came naturally to you, but is impossible for me? Watch him slowly realize that something's changed and pull away? He laughed bitterly.
No.
It's better this way. Better to shut it down now before it gets worse. But he's going to marry someone he doesn't love, I said. He's going to be miserable. He's the Crown Prince, Feng Wei replied. He was always going to marry for duty. At least this way. He won't spend his marriage pining for something he thought he could have had. I wanted to argue more, but I could feel Feng Wei's resolve. He was protecting them both, protecting Bo Cheng from an impossible relationship, protecting himself from the torture of trying to be something he wasn't. But in doing so, he was condemning them both to lives of quiet misery. The next few days were torture. Bo Cheng tried to talk to me several times, but Feng Wei would take control whenever he got too close, maintaining formal distance and proper protocols. I could feel Bo Cheng's hurt, his confusion, but there was nothing I could do. At night, Feng Wei and I would argue. You're making it worse, I insisted. He thinks that we rejected him. Better that than giving him false hope, Feng Wei countered. In a few weeks, I'll be back in full control. You'll be gone. What do you think will happen then? You think I can maintain this openness? This ease? I can't. And when Bo Cheng realizes that, when he sees that the person he developed feelings for doesn't exist anymore, it will hurt so much worse. Maybe you could try, I suggested. Maybe you could let yourself be less formal. He wants that. He wants his friend back. His friend, Feng Wei said bitterly. That's all I'll ever be to him. When you're gone, and I'm in control, he'll see that clearly. The feelings he thinks he has, they'll fade. He'll marry Lady Qiao Lian and eventually forget about this entire mess. Will you forget? I asked quietly, but Feng Wei didn't answer. 2 weeks before the wedding, something happened that changed everything. I was alone in my chambers one night, unable to sleep, when I found myself drawn to the small pavilion behind my rooms. The moon was full, casting silver light over the garden. And there was Bo Cheng. He was sitting on the pavilion steps, still dressed in his formal robes from some evening function. He looked exhausted, defeated in a way that made my chest ache. Don't, Feng Wei warned immediately. Turn around. Go back inside. But I couldn't. Not when Bo Cheng looked so lost. Your Highness, I said quietly, approaching carefully. He looked up, and something flickered across his face when he saw me. Feng Wei, he replied, his voice neutral. You don't need to use my title when we're alone. He's still hoping, Feng Wei observed quietly. Even after I pushed him away, he's still hoping. I sat down beside Bo Cheng, maintaining a careful distance. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. My wedding is in 2 weeks, Bo Cheng finally said, his voice hollow. Lady Qiao Lian moved into the palace today. We had dinner together. She was perfectly polite and appropriately gracious, and I wanted to scream the entire time. Bo Cheng, I started. Don't, he interrupted gently. Don't tell me it will get better, or that I'll learn to be content. We both know that's not true. He looked at me then, and the moonlight caught in his eyes, making them shine with unshed tears. I meant what I said that night, he continued quietly. About falling for you. I know you pushed me away. I know you think it's impossible. But my feelings haven't changed. Take control, I urged Feng Wei. Stop this before it goes further. But Feng Wei was silent, and I realized with shock that he was letting me handle this. That maybe, just maybe, he wanted to hear what Bo Cheng would say. I can't stop thinking about you, Bo Cheng admitted, his voice rough with emotion. About the way you laugh at my jokes. The way you challenge me when I'm being stubborn. The way you look at me sometimes, like I'm just a person and not a crown. He swallowed hard. I know this is wrong. I know we can't, but I needed you to know. Before I marry her, before I lose the chance forever, I needed you to know that you're the one I want. You're the one I've fallen for. My heart was breaking. For him. For Feng Wei. For myself. Bo Cheng, I said softly, I need to tell you something. What are you doing? Feng Wei asked sharply. I'm tired of lying, I thought back. I'm tired of all of us being miserable because we're too afraid to be honest. What is it? Bo Cheng asked, turning to face me fully. I took a breath, making a decision that would change everything. The person you've fallen for, the one who's been spending evenings with you, who's been so open and relaxed, I'm not entirely who you think I am, I said carefully. Bo Cheng's brow furrowed. What do you mean? He asked. When I woke up after the poison, something changed. I continued, choosing my words carefully. The physician said it was memory loss, but it's more than that. It's like... I struggled to explain without sounding completely insane. It's like part of me died, and what came back is different. A different version of Feng Wei. What are you doing? Feng Wei demanded. You can't tell him. I'm not telling him everything, I thought back. Just enough, so he understands. You're saying the poison changed your personality? Bo Cheng asked slowly. In a way, I replied. The person you've been spending time with these past months, the one who doesn't remember to keep proper distance, who treats you like a friend instead of a prince, that version might not last. The old Feng Wei, the one who knew his place and maintained proper protocols, he's still here too. And he's getting stronger. Bo Cheng stared at me, processing this. You're saying you might go back to being distant? Formal, he asked. Yes, I said quietly. And when that happens, the feelings you think you have, they might not make sense anymore. Because they're not really for Feng Wei. They're for this temporary version that might disappear. Good, Feng Wei said, sounding relieved. You're letting him down gently. But Bo Cheng shook his head firmly. You're wrong, he stated. I'm not falling for a version of you. I'm falling for you. All of you. The person you are now, the person you were before, all of it. Yes, you're different than you were. Yes, you're more open now. But that doesn't mean my feelings aren't real. He reached out, taking my hand in his. I've known you my entire life, Feng Wei, he continued, his voice intense. I've watched you grow from a boy into a man. I've seen you brave and loyal and strong. And these past months, I've seen another side of you, vulnerable and honest and real. Both versions are you. Both versions matter to me. He doesn't understand, Feng Wei said quietly. He doesn't realize that the old me won't be able to give him what he wants. Won't be able to be open like this. What if the old version comes back and pushes you away again? I asked. What if that formal distance returns? Then I'll work to break through it, Bo Cheng said simply. I'll remind that version of you that it's okay to just be my friend. That you don't have to hide behind protocol. He stopped suddenly, his eyes widening as something occurred to him. That's what happened, isn't it? He said slowly. That night when you suddenly went cold and formal, that was the old version taking over? He's too perceptive, Feng Wei muttered. Yes, I admitted. And right now? Which version am I talking to? Bo Cheng asked. Both, I said honestly. We're mixed together. But the old version is getting stronger. Soon, he might be all that's left. Bo Cheng was quiet for a long moment, his thumb rubbing across my knuckles absently. Then I need to tell you this while I still can, he said finally. while you're still here to listen. I don't care which version of you comes back. I don't care if you're formal or relaxed, distant or close. I'm in love with Feng Wei, all of him, every version, every facet. And I know it's impossible. I know I'm getting married in 2 weeks. But I needed you to know. Both of you need to know. His words hit like an arrow. He loves us, I thought to Feng Wei, stunned. He loves you, Feng Wei corrected, but his voice was shaking. The parts of me you brought out. The version you created. No, I insisted. He said all versions. He means it. Before Feng Wei could argue, Bo Cheng leaned forward, his forehead resting against mine. I know we can't be together, he whispered. I know my duty. I know I'm marrying Lady Qiao Lian, and nothing can change that. But for just this one moment, just this one night, can we pretend? Can we pretend that duty doesn't matter, that we're just two people who care about each other? Every logical part of me screamed that this was a terrible idea, that we were just making everything worse, that in 2 weeks he'd be married, and this moment would torture us both. But I was tired of logic, tired of duty, tired of hiding. Yes, I whispered back. Bo Cheng's breath caught. His hand slid into my hair, gentle but desperate, and then he was kissing me. The world narrowed to that single point of contact, his lips on mine, soft and urgent and perfect. My borrowed heart hammered in my chest, every nerve ending alive with sensation. This was wrong on so many levels I couldn't even count them, but in that moment I didn't care. His hands framed my face like I was something precious. The kiss deepened, grew more desperate, like he was trying to memorize the feel of me before I slipped away. When we finally broke apart, both of us breathing hard, he kept his forehead pressed to mine. I love you, he whispered. I love you, and it's killing me that I can't have you. I love you too, I breathed back, the confession finally free. So do I, Feng Wei said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. I've loved him for years. And now when he finally... His voice broke. Then I felt it. Feng Wei's presence surged forward like a tidal wave, but this time it was different. Not the gradual push I'd felt before, not the temporary takeover. This felt final. Absolute. Unstoppable. Terror seized my chest. No, I gasped, my hands suddenly gripping Bo Cheng's robes with desperate strength. No, not now. Feng Wei. Bo Cheng asked, pulling back slightly, his eyes searching my face with immediate concern. What's wrong? My grip tightened, then loosened against my will as Feng Wei pushed harder. I fought back, clinging to consciousness, to control, to this moment. My hands spasmed, tight, loose, tight again, as the battle raged inside me.
Please.
Just a little longer, I begged silently, but Feng Wei remained silent. Instead, he pushed harder. I'm out of time, I said desperately, the words tumbling out fast and frantic. He's taking over, the real Feng Wei, he's taking back control, and this time it's permanent. I can feel it, it's different. No, Bo Cheng said sharply, his hands moving to grip my arms. Not yet. My vision flickered. The garden wavered around me like I was seeing it through water. Feng Wei, look at me, Bo Cheng commanded, his voice cracking with desperation.
Stay. Just one more day.
Please, one more. I could hear the guilt beneath his plea, the terrible knowledge that he was asking his best friend to stay trapped just so he could keep me a little longer. But he said it anyway, selfish with love and fear. Bo Cheng, I gasped, feeling my grip on consciousness slipping. I need to tell you, I need you to know.
What?
What is it? He asked urgently, gripping my arms tighter. I need you to know that you changed everything, I forced out, fighting against the darkness creeping in at the edges of my vision. My hands were shaking now, my grip on his robes loosening no matter how hard I tried to hold on. That these months with you were the happiest I've ever been, that you made me feel seen for the first time in my life. I love you. I need you to know that you mean everything to me, that you—" The world tilted violently. "Not yet," Bo Cheng cried out, his voice rising with panic as he watched my eyes lose focus. "Please, not yet." And then the darkness pulled me under. I was falling into nothing. Light. Blinding, painful, white light that seared through my closed eyelids. Beeping. Steady, mechanical beeping. The smell hit me next, sharp, clinical, antiseptic. Not incense. Not herbs. Antiseptic. I tried to gasp but couldn't. Something was in my throat, down my throat, choking me. Panic exploded in my chest. I tried to move, but my body was so heavy, so weak, like it hadn't moved in. "Oh my God. Oh my God. She's awake," a young woman's voice screamed, high and sharp with shock. "Someone get the doctor. She's awake." My eyes flew open, my real eyes, and I stared up at a white ceiling. Smooth white ceiling with fluorescent lights, not carved wooden beams. The beeping was louder now, faster, matching the frantic hammering of my heart. A face appeared above me, young, tear-stained, achingly familiar. "Jia Jia," my sister sobbed, her hands hovering over me like she was afraid to touch me, afraid I'd disappear. "You're awake. You're finally awake." I tried to speak, but there was a tube in my throat, and I couldn't breathe around it, couldn't talk, couldn't. People rushed in. Doctors, nurses, all talking at once in urgent voices about vitals and brain function and miracles. Hands touched me, checked me, and someone, a nurse with gentle fingers, began working on the tube. "Just relax, let us remove it," the nurse instructed softly. "Don't fight it. Just breathe through your nose." The sensation of the tube sliding out was horrible, wrong. But then it was gone, and I was gasping, my throat raw and burning, my real throat in my real body that had been lying still for 2 years, a doctor was saying to my sister, his voice full of wonder. "She's been in a coma for 2 years, and suddenly, she just wakes up. Remarkable. Truly remarkable. 2 years. I'd been gone for 2 years. Someone held water to my lips. I drank, the coolness painful against my abused throat. "Ningning? Can you hear me?" a doctor asked, his voice professional but excited. "You're in the hospital. You've been in a coma. Do you know who you are?" A coma. Not dead. In a coma. The realization crashed over me like a wave. I hadn't died in that accident. I'd been here the whole time, lying in this bed while my consciousness lived another life in another world. While I fell in love with a prince I'd never see again. "Jia Jia, please say something," my sister begged, gripping my hand so tight it hurt. I opened my mouth, but the words that came out weren't for her. "Everything to me, that you changed my whole world," I whispered hoarsely, my voice raw and broken, completing the sentence I'd started in another world, in another body, in Bo Cheng's arms. "I love you, Bo Cheng. I love you." My sister's face crumpled in confusion. "Jia Jia, who is Bo Cheng?" she asked carefully, her voice shaking. "There's no one here by that name." But I couldn't stop. The confession I'd started in another world was completing itself here, unstoppable, desperate. "I love you," I sobbed, tears streaming down my face. "I love you. I love you." The words kept coming, over and over, a litany of feeling for someone who would never hear them. Someone in a different time, a different world, who I would never see again. Who had no idea I was completing my confession in a hospital room centuries in the future. "It's okay, Jia Jia," my sister said softly, holding me while I cried, clearly thinking I was delirious. "You're okay. You're safe now." A doctor appeared beside my bed, checking my vitals, asking questions I barely registered. 2 years, they said. I'd been in a coma for 2 years. The accident had been severe. Head trauma, multiple fractures. They'd almost lost me several times. 2 years. In that world, I'd lived for months.
Here, 2 years had passed.
Jie, you need to rest, my sister said gently, wiping my tears with a tissue. The doctors say you'll be confused for a while. It's normal after being in a coma so long. Normal? Nothing about this was normal. I'd lived in another body. Fallen in love with a prince from ancient times. Shared a body with a man who'd loved that same prince for years. And now I was back in my own body, my own time, with no way to ever return. 6 months later, I stood on my apartment balcony, looking out at the city's skyline as the sun set. The city glittered with lights, modern and alive and completely different from the ancient palace I couldn't stop thinking about. The recovery had been slow but steady. Over the first few weeks in the hospital, I'd relearned how to sit up, how to stand, how to take those first painful steps. Physical therapy sessions blurred together, my muscles slowly remembering how to work, my body slowly becoming mine again. My family had visited constantly. My mother cried every time she saw me. My father, usually stoic, couldn't stop holding my hand. My sister came every day, bringing me books and updates about the outside world, chattering about nothing just to fill the silence. 3 months after waking, the doctors had finally discharged me. I'd stayed with my parents for a while. My mother insisted, hovering over me like I might disappear again at any moment. They'd kept my apartment, kept paying rent, refusing to give up hope even when the doctors had said there was little chance I'd wake. 2 weeks ago, they'd finally, reluctantly, let me return to my own place. My sister had helped me move back in, unpacking boxes, making sure I had everything I needed. Everything was exactly as I'd left it 2 years ago. My laptop on the desk, my clothes in the closet, my life frozen in time. But I wasn't the same person who'd left this apartment. I'd searched obsessively, hours on my phone and laptop, combing through every historical database I could access, looking for any mention of a crown prince named Bo Cheng, a bodyguard named Feng Wei, a spring festival wedding. Anything that might tell me their story had been real. Nothing. Either they'd existed too long ago for records to survive, or they'd been in a different timeline entirely, or, and this was the thought that haunted me most at 3 a.m, maybe it really had all been a coma dream. An elaborate fantasy my mind had created to cope with unconsciousness. But it had felt so real. The pain of the arrow wound, the taste of wine, the weight of a sword in my hands, the warmth of Bo Cheng's hand in mine, the way his eyes lit up when he smiled, the sound of his laugh, the desperate press of his lips against mine in the moonlight. How could something that vivid, that detailed, that heartbreaking just be a dream? I let myself imagine what happened after I left. Bo Cheng standing beside Lady Qiao Lian on his wedding day, looking beautiful in ceremonial robes while his heart ached for something he couldn't have. Or maybe, and this was what I hoped for when hope felt possible, maybe something had changed. Maybe my openness had planted a seed. Maybe Bo Cheng and Feng Wei had found a way to bridge that gap. I'd never know. And that was perhaps the cruelest part of all, not the impossibility of the love, but the not knowing. Being ripped away with a story unfinished, the ending unwritten. I hope you're happy, I whispered to the darkening sky. Wherever you are, I hope you found some peace. A breeze stirred my hair, warm and gentle, almost like a caress. And for just a moment, just one impossible, beautiful moment, I could almost feel him. Could almost sense his presence reaching across time and space to touch me one final time. I love you, I whispered. I'll always love you. I stood there until the stars blurred with tears, until the city lights below became a wash of color, until my heart finally began to accept what my mind already knew. It was over. He was gone. That life was gone. I was here. And somehow I have to find a way to keep living.